Welcome to Phantom Truths, 50 bizarre unsolved events.
Oh,
I love that.
yeah.
Today, we're diving deep into a mystery
Oh, cool.
that has captivated imaginations for decades. The Somerton Man.
I've heard of this one.
It's December 1st, 1948, on a peaceful stretch of Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia. A man is found dead.
Oh.
But the circumstances surrounding his demise
Yeah.
are anything but peaceful.
Whoa, no.
No identification, strange clues,
Uh-huh.
a secret code. This case has it all.
Sounds juicy.
We've got historical articles, inquest documents, even Wikipedia excerpts all ready to help us unravel this cold case.
Right, let's do it.
So to set the scene, he was found lying on the sand, looking almost like he was sleeping.
Peacefully.
Yeah, peacefully.
Except he wasn't sleeping.
Except he wasn't sleeping.
He was dead.
Right.
And there was absolutely nothing on him to indicate who he was.
I was going to say no wallet, no ID?
Nope.
But you're saying even further?
Every single label on his clothes was meticulously removed. It's like someone wanted to make him disappear, erase him from existence.
Okay, so that already sets off alarm bells, right?
Yeah.
Someone went to a lot of trouble to make sure he couldn't be identified.
Absolutely.
But there were a few items found on it,
Oh, okay.
and they only deepen the mystery.
Like what?
An unused train ticket to Henley Beach, a bus ticket, and an American-made comb.
Interesting. An American comb in Australia in the 1940s.
Right.
That's a detail that makes you stop and think.
Yeah, what was he doing with that?
Right.
That's the connection there.
Exactly.
And those tickets you just mentioned are particularly intriguing.
Yeah.
Was Henley Beach his intended destination? If so, why didn't he make it there? Was he heading somewhere else entirely? And Somerton Beach was just a stop along the way.
It's like trying to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Yeah, exactly. And let's not forget about the half-eaten pasty found nearby.
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
Such a mundane detail, yet it sticks with you. It's this little snapshot of normalcy in the midst of something completely baffling.
It's those little details that often hold the most significance.
Okay.
And speaking of details, we can't overlook the suitcase linked to our mystery man,
Oh, suitcase.
found at the Adelaide railway station.
Now this is where things get really wild.
Okay, tell me more.
Inside, they found a collection of items.
Uh-huh.
A dressing gown, slippers, clothes. But you guessed it, most of the labels were gone.
Of course they were.
However, there were some Keen tags left behind.
Keen.
Was Keen his real name?
That's the question that haunted investigators for years.
Yeah.
They scoured missing person reports, but no Keen matched the Somerton man's description.
So another dead end.
And there's another intriguing detail. Orange waxed thread.
Okay.
It was found in the suitcase, and it was the same type of thread used to repair the man's trousers.
Wow.
So someone was very careful in removing most identifying marks, but they left these specific clues, almost like breadcrumbs leading in a certain direction.
So it's like they wanted to give investigators a glimpse into his life.
Right.
But then decided to pull back the curtain at the last minute.
Like, why even leave that? It
Yeah.
makes no sense.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, there's always more with this case.
We can't talk about the Somerton man without mentioning the code.
The code.
What's a good mystery without a secret message to decode?
This is where the case takes a truly perplexing turn.
Okay.
Hidden in a fob pocket in his trousers was a tiny scrap of paper with the words Tamam Shud printed on it.
Tamam should ended or finished in Persian.
Yes.
And it gets even stranger.
Oh, no.
This scrap was torn from a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a collection of poems.
Exactly.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the themes found in those poems, living life to the fullest, embracing the present moment, added fuel to the theories surrounding suicide.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
But there's a twist.
There's always those.
In the back of that very same book, investigators found 5 lines of capital letters scribbled down. 5 lines. It looked very much like a coded message.
Wait, so we have this unidentified man with a torn piece of paper from a book of poetry with a cryptic phrase on it
Yes.
and a secret message in the back of the book.
It's like something straight out of a spy thriller.
Right.
And despite numerous attempts to crack this code involving military cryptographers, amateur sleuths, and even experts in computational linguistics, it remains a mystery to this day.
Oh, wow.
This message continues to tantalize researchers, whispering secrets that we may never fully understand.
So we have a dead man with no name, a collection of bizarre clues, a secret code, And a book of poetry that seems to hold some significance.
That's right.
It's enough to make your head spin.
It's a puzzle with missing pieces, and each new piece seems to raise more questions than answers.
And just when you think you can't get any more complicated, there's another twist.
Another one.
Remember that phone number found in the back of the ruby yacht?
Ah, yes, the phone number that led them to Justin, the nurse.
Right. We're using a pseudonym to protect her identity. But her real name was Jessica Ellen Thompson.
Okay.
She lived just a few blocks from where the Somerton man was found.
Interesting.
And her connection to this case adds another layer of intrigue.
For sure.
She claimed she didn't know the Somerton man, but her reaction when she saw the plaster cast of his face, well, it wasn't what you'd expect from someone who had never met him.
What do you mean?
Like, she recognized him, but couldn't or wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
I've always found that part of the story so unsettling.
That is strange.
Yeah, it's definitely a pivotal moment in the investigation.
Yeah.
And then there's the story of an unidentified man asking her neighbors about her just before the Somerton man was found.
Really?
It almost seems like he was looking for her, which raises even more questions about their potential connection.
Wow. Okay, so we have a potential love triangle, a secret code, a missing identity.
It's like all these pieces are connected somehow.
Yeah.
But we just can't quite figure out how they fit together.
It's a tangled web, that's for sure, and Jessica Thompson might be the key to untangling it.
Okay.
But who was she really, and what secrets did she hold?
That's what we'll explore further when we come back.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome back. Before we dive into Jessica and her possible connection to the Somerton man,
Okay.
let's rewind a bit and talk about another interesting person
Okay.
in this saga,
Who's that?
Alf Boxall.
Oh, Alf Boxall.
Remember Jessica gave him a copy of the Ruby Yacht during World War II?
Right, yeah. So was Alf Boxall the mysterious Somerton man? Could this be our missing link?
Well, that's what investigators hoped for. It seemed like a solid lead at the time.
Yeah.
But alas, it turned out to be a dead end. They found Alf
Really?
alive and well.
Oh,
And
man.
he still had his copy of the Ruby Yacht.
Another false lead. Every time we get close to an answer, the mystery just deepens.
It can be frustrating, but even though Boxall wasn't our Somerton man,
Yeah?
his background adds another layer of intrigue to the story.
Okay, how so?
Turns out he had been involved in intelligence work during the war,
Oh, wow.
and even received rapid promotions, suggesting a certain level of skill and importance.
Now that's interesting intelligence work. Secret missions. Could there be a connection to espionage after all? It's like we're peeling back layers of a very complex onion.
Certainly seems that way.
Okay, so if it wasn't Boxall
Right.
and Jessica was tight-lipped,
Yeah.
then who was this man? Why was he there? It feels like we've been circling around this central question for ages.
And for decades, that question has stumped researchers and fueled countless theories.
Such as?
Was he a spy caught in the crosshairs of Cold War intrigue?
Okay.
Was he a heartbroken lover seeking solace by the sea? Or was he running from his past, desperately trying to disappear?
The whole Cold War setting definitely adds to the spy theory, doesn't it? Spies everywhere, secrets lurking in every shadow.
The timing is certainly curious. The Somerton man's death coincided with a period of heightened tension between the West and the Soviet Union. Australian security agencies were undergoing major changes, and fears of Soviet espionage were running high.
Makes sense.
And let's not forget that he was found relatively close to some sensitive locations.
Oh, like what?
The Radium Hill uranium mine and the Woomera test range, both sites of significant strategic importance during the Cold War.
So the spy theory holds weight. What about other theories? What were people speculating back then?
Well, there were all sorts of ideas floating around. Some suggested he was a disgruntled businessman, maybe someone who had lost it all and decided to end things quietly by the sea.
Okay.
Others thought he might have been a sailor who jumped ship, seeking a new life in a new land.
Interesting.
There was even a theory that he was a ballet dancer based on the strength and definition of his calf muscles.
A ballet dancer. Wow. The imagination runs wild when you're dealing with a mystery like this. And then there's the H.C. Reynolds ID card discovered years later.
Yes.
Could that have been the Somerton man's true identity?
That discovery definitely added a new wrinkle to the case, unfortunately. Despite extensive searches, no one named H.C. Reynolds, matching the Somerton man's description, ever turned up.
Good.
It was another tantalizing lead that ultimately led nowhere.
It's like every time we get a possible answer, the mystery just throws another curveball.
Right.
It makes you wonder if we'll ever truly know who this man was.
For a long time, it did feel like we were chasing shadows.
Yeah.
But then in 2021, something remarkable happened that breathed new life into the investigation.
Oh, tell me, did they finally crack the code?
Not quite, but they did something almost as dramatic.
Okay, what's that?
They exhumed his body,
You dug him up?
hoping to extract DNA and finally, after all these years, unlock the secrets of his identity.
Wait, they dug him up after all this time. That's incredible.
It was a major development, a bold move that demonstrated just how determined researchers were to solve this case.
Yeah.
And it was all thanks to the tireless efforts of Professor Derek Abbott, who had dedicated years of his life to unraveling the mystery of the Somerton man.
Professor Abbott, what was his take on the case?
He was convinced there was a link between the Somerton man and Jessica Thompson.
Okay.
In fact, he even put forward the theory that Jessica's son might have been the Somerton man's child.
Wow, that's a bold claim.
It was, and while DNA testing didn't confirm that specific theory, Professor Abbott's determination paved the way for a groundbreaking discovery.
So did the DNA analysis from the exhumation reveal anything? Was it the key to finally unlocking the mystery?
It was, and this, my friend, is where the story takes a truly remarkable turn in 2022 through painstaking genealogical research and DNA analysis. Professor Abbott and genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick achieved what many thought was impossible.
Oh, wow.
They announced they had identified the Somerton man.
Wait, seriously, after all these years, they finally figured it out. Who was he? Spill the bean.
His name was Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer born in Melbourne in 1905.
After all this time, the Somerton man finally has a name. It's almost unbelievable.
It is, but as you might imagine, with this newfound identity comes a whole new set of questions. A new chapter in this endlessly fascinating mystery.
One mystery solved, a dozen more emerge. It's the Somerton man all over again.
Precisely so. Who was this Carl Webb? What led him to Somerton Beach on that fateful day? And how does this new information fit into the puzzle we've been trying to solve? That's what we'll uncover when we return for our final segment.
All right, we're back. And I gotta say, I'm still kind of reeling from the fact that we finally have a name for the Somerton man.
I know, right?
Carl Charles Webb,
It's amazing.
an electrical engineer from Melbourne.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think that after all these years, this mystery man has finally emerged from the shadows.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that this identification only opens up a new chapter in the case.
Right.
So tell me, who was Carl Webb?
Well, based on what we've been able to piece together so far,
Hmm.
Carl Webb was born in 1905, the youngest of 6 children.
Okay,
His family ran a bakery,
interesting.
but Carl eventually became an electrical instrument maker.
Okay.
He was married, but his relationship with his wife Dorothy was quite troubled.
Troubled in what way? What kind of man was he?
According to Dorothy, Carl was a solitary man prone to mood swings
Oh.
and even violence at times.
Wow.
She described him as someone who preferred a quiet life, often in bed by 7 p.m. each night.
So a real homebody.
Yeah, but she also mentioned that he was quite fond of poetry,
Oh, really?
even writing some himself, often with themes of death and despair.
So a quiet, poetry-loving engineer with a dark side.
Yeah, you could say that.
It certainly paints a picture of a complex individual, someone who might end up at the center of a mystery like this. And what about the keen tags
Right.
found on some of the Somerton man's clothing?
Yes.
Does that tie into Carl Webb's life at all?
It does.
Really?
It seems those tags weren't a red herring. After all, Carl Webb's sister was married to a man named Thomas Keene.
No way. So those clothes could have belonged to a relative. It's like all these seemingly random pieces are finally starting to fall into place.
It really does seem that way.
And those American-made items we discussed earlier, well, it turns out Carl had a nephew who lived in the U.S.,
Oh, wow.
which could explain their presence.
Makes sense.
But even with a name and some family connections, the circumstances surrounding his death remain unclear. We know who he was, but we still don't know how or why he ended up on Somerton Beach.
Exactly.
Right? We still don't know what brought him there, why all his labels were removed, or what his final days were like.
Right.
And what about that coded message in the Ruby yacht?
Oh, the code.
Does it hold any significance now that we know his name?
That's the question that continues to baffle researchers.
Yeah.
Some believe it could be related to horse racing, given Carl's apparent interest in betting, but so far the code remains unbroken.
Wow.
It's almost as if Carl took those secrets to his grave.
It's frustrating, but also incredibly fascinating.
I know.
It's like we've solved one giant puzzle only to find another even more intricate puzzle underneath.
Exactly. Identifying Carl Webb has answered one major question: who was the Somerton man?
Right.
But in doing so, it has opened up a Pandora's box of new questions.
Such as?
Was his death a suicide, as his poetry and troubled past might suggest?
Okay.
Or was there something more sinister at play? What brought him to Somerton Beach in the first place? And what secrets, if any, does that coded message still hold?
It's both a victory and a beginning. We've finally given this man back his name, but the mystery of his life and death continues.
The Somerton man case, even with a name and a face, remains an enigma. It reminds us that sometimes, even when we find answers the mystery endures, it challenges us to keep searching, keep questioning, and keep exploring the shadows of the past.
Well, folks, there you have it, a deep dive into one of history's most perplexing unsolved mysteries.
Yes.
We may know his name now,
Yeah.
but the questions surrounding Carl Webb's life and death continue to fascinate and intrigue.
Absolutely.
We've laid out the facts, explored the theories, and now it's your turn. What do you think happened to Carl Webb? What secrets do you think he took with him to the graves? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world of phantom truths.